Greetings. Welcome to another edition of the Red Pill Diaries. We are your hosts, Rashid and Rashid. Would you give us a second? We're having a little problem, as always, when it's time to do the show. We have these technical glitches from either StreamYard or YouTube or whatever like that. But just give us a second for us to get everything right for you. Here we are. All right, there we are. Now I got it. Hold on. Here we are. So, everybody, welcome to another edition of the Red Pill Diaries. We're your hosts, Rashid and Rashid. We thank all of you all for joining us today. We also want to make an announcement, and we'll probably make this announcement throughout the show. Monday, we'll have a special guest, but we'll be doing two shows, I believe. One at noon with a special guest on the Patreon, and that will be co-founder of Scholars for 911 Truth and podcast host, international lecturer, human rights advocate, Kevin Barrett. He's also a geopolitical analyst. He'll be on the show, and that'll be on the Patreon Monday. Also, we'll be doing right after that or right before that, we'll be doing a live stream here on YouTube. So we'd like to thank you for joining us, and we want to just inform you. And after that, we'll have a few more guests, I believe, either next week or the week after next. It's according to if we can get our schedules right. We have some power hitters coming, some big wigs coming to the show. But let's get into everything. Before we get into the geopolitics, before we get into the economics, how about this storm that ravaged South Florida? What say you about it, Rashid? Have you seen any of the pictures?
Somebody just sent me a picture of an alligator in somebody's living room.
What?
Now, how would you like to come home? Yes, I think I sent it to you. Didn't I send it to you?
I might have to check my messages. I haven't checked my messages. I was trying to set up the platform so we can go live and stuff like that.
I'm sending it to you now. I'm sending it to you now.
Okay, I'll check it shortly. But it is crazy. A lot of people don't understand the connection between the geopolitical climate, the so-called economic climate, the political climate, and also the connection with climate change. And I do believe that is because they have little understanding of scripture and prophecy. And we're not this is not a what you call a so-called religious show. We connect everything, and we try to give you a lot of understanding. But America is being devastated by these storms because of the way she treats other people. Again, this goes back to something that I have been saying to you all. America believes that she is the exception to God's rules, that she can bomb people, she can deprive people of justice within her own borders, that she can talk to people any kind of way, dictate to people, go around the world just ravaging and pillaging and stand before the world and talk about human rights and freedom and democracy and territorial sovereignty and national security and all that stuff, while all the while stealing oil shipments out of Syria, occupying Syria, refusing to give people of color justice in America. All of this is God exacting retribution on America. So we know that most militaries can't deal with America because of her military prowess. But America can't deal with God as he uses his army against her to bring forth justice for those who have lacked justice. And his armed forces are called the forces of nature. And these armed forces is something that America's anti-ballistic missile shields, her so-called Minutemen ballistic missiles, her nuclear submarines, her nuclear missiles, all of these things, it is something that they can't fight against because these are direct attacks on America's sovereignty. Go ahead. I got your message.
Remember, Donald Trump said, let's go nuke the hurricane.
Yeah,
when it's forming, let's nuke it.
That shows you the insanity,
the mentality
again,
of these people.
Yes, it goes and shows just how insane they are. but it connects right with the economics, right with the political aspect of it, because there and I have to get on something about the politics of something, because this is a theme that I've constantly seen across the so-called alternative media, and I've seen this across especially conservative media, and how they're raging about the FBI using its powers to to what they would call exact revenge on patriots. Now, again, we go back to a show that we did a few maybe a week and a half ago. Isn't it ironic that those who stormed the Capitol, whether they had grievances or not, they stormed the Capitol, they took people hostages, people were killed, people were injured, they ransacked the capital of the so-called most powerful and influential and richest state in the world, which is America, and the whole world was watching. And there can be justification for this with alternative and conservative media. But when black people air their grievances against police's harassment and unlawful killing and detainment of people, we are supposed to just take that, and when we protest and then it explodes into what they call rebellion, that is called insurrection and rioting. But when these people go to the government and ransack and Capitol on Capitol Hill and take control of the institutions which govern America, which is the Congress, that is patriotic. How in the hell can that even be? How can you even rationalize the two? Because think about this: Fox News and all the other news, all they showed was protesting and people ransacking stores. Now, these stores had nothing to do with the governance of America, the national security of America, the cohesiveness of America, right? And they were called thugs and brutes and savages on television because they were protesting the inhumane treatment of the justice system, the constant murdering of people of color. But people who were not of color, most went to the Congress and seized the Capitol buildings, and people were hurt. And people, even if your grievance had any legitimacy to it, you ransacked the Capitol buildings. You held hostages these were government officials and government representatives with the intent on harming more. But those are patriots. Make that make sense. Make that make sense. Because to any sane person, any rational person, this was an egregious attempt to subvert justice. Now think about this. Because like I said, I'm neither any side. I'm not Democrat, I'm not Republican, I'm apolitical. I don't care what goes on with the political system because it is inherently corrupt. Okay. So let us think about this for a minute. Let us please let us think about this for just a second. Why is it that this can go on and people just go with it, and you can accept that when think about this. I'm gonna bring your attention to something. I'm gonna bring everybody's attention back to something. Was there that much uprising when there was when Bush Jr. about the hanging Chad in Florida, and there was an uproar with the opposite party saying that something was compromised. I won't, you know what I'm talking about. I won't say because the algorithms will probably come back and say something about politics. So I won't say, but the hanging Chad in Florida and the uproar about that and how they wanted to redo the vote because it was not legitimate, right? How is it that they forget that? And I'm not, listen, I think Joe Biden is a disaster, a walking disaster, But how is it that you were okay with that? But when it directly affects you, it's an affront to democracy and justice and patriots must retake America. I'm trying to get this because it shows the world the hypocrisy of the political system. It shows the world the hypocrisy of those who benefited from the system, who are people of not of color. So how can you justify that on one end, accept it when it's convenient for you, and on the other end of the spectrum, you uh, are in an uproar because now the shoe is on your foot, and you don't like how it fits. Uh, Say something about that. Speak to that, Rashid. And remember when you say this, we got to be careful about what we say because I got a warning or something about this the other day. So so we have to be very careful about what we say. Oh, okay. Can you
First
can
of
you say
all,
it? Okay, there you go.
Donald
There you
Trump
go.
is not he's not a politician. And remember what you were saying about the hanging chads.
Yes.
This Al Gore accepted the election because he is a politician. Politicians, they come out and we spar among one another, go back and forth, and if we win, I'll accept. If I win, you'll accept it, and if you win, and if I win, he don't. He wasn't trained to be a politician. He don't think like a politician. He thinks more like a gangster. That's what he mainly thinks about. He don't. And he's what he's done is strike a nerve in the right wing media, or those that feel that they've been wronged. Other people are taking our jobs, right?
Mm-hmm.
Other people is other people they feel that they are being marginalized,
Mm-hmm.
right? So what's
Right.
happening is that they, huh?
Oh, keep going,
Okay,
keep going.
what's
I'm
happening
just
is
fixing
they
the
feel
cameras.
marginalized. Okay, they feel marginalized, and I think it's this rapper that said that a white rapper said, "I say," and too afraid to say.
Mm-hmm.
People, Donald Trump's people, they are really angry and feel that somebody else is taking something away from them. That's what that is. And that they're gonna get mad. As like you said, as long as it happens to somebody else, they can solve freedom is taken away from them. They're ready to tap the country.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And nobody spoke of this. This is what I'm saying. And this is what I say, how our show is revolutionary and how our show go to the root, and we pull no punches. We don't care either side, but we call an ace a ace and a spade a spade. And how ironic, nobody brought up this comparison. No mainstream or alternative media ever brought up this comparison, which is amazing to me. And what's more is the fabric of America is being ripped to shreds by people on either side trying to maintain their political clout and their power, and without even really addressing what lies at the base, which is causing the collapse and fall of the American Republic. You know, they want to dance around the real issues and direct people's attention to something that benefits them without going to the core matter of what is causing the decline and fall of America. It is because of her arrogance. It is because a deep-seated level of racism, exceptionalism. Um, like I said, they believe that they are the exception to the rules, and again, the hypocrisy is astonishing to me. You know, I often think about this, and this will get me in a little trouble with some of a few people who listen to the show who are in high places that are thinking about coming on the show, and they may not come after I say these things right here, but it's okay. So listen, what's amazing to me is that they can call everybody a tyrant, everybody a dictator, but they are the ones who are trying to dictate to China, to Russia, to Iran, to Africa. As a matter of fact, as we talk on these issues, the nation with the most bases, military bases around the world, is without a doubt the United States. Russia may have maybe 6 to a dozen military bases. China has about 2 or
I
3
think he got 2,
logistic.
don't they?
Yeah, but they got another one that they hadn't mentioned. You know, we'll talk about that behind the scenes. They have another one they haven't mentioned,
Okay,
brother. but
okay, okay,
but
okay,
again,
okay.
so they have about 3, maybe 3 or 4. China has about 3 or 4. And America openly has 800 to 1,000. But as I continue to tell everybody, there was a report, and maybe I can find that there was a congressional hearing years ago, and in that congressional hearing, I'm not sure if it was I cannot think of the defense secretary at the time and the general who was speaking at the time, but I was very curious of what was being said. So I watched the hearing about defense funding and U.S. military bases around the world. And when they talk about training centers, what is and other bases that are categorized as military bases and ammo depots that are staffed with large amounts of troops, and they talk about logistical hubs. The United in that meeting, which it had to be maybe a decade ago when they were talking about this, or half a decade ago, um, they said that the United States, when you count all of those, has roughly 5,000 of these around the globe. Now, I say that to put everything in perspective. Publicly 800, which is still a global empire. Privately 5,000 plus. Now, how in the hell can you be mad that somebody has a half dozen, or somebody has 24, or somebody may have even 100? How can you be mad when you have the world trampled with bases, military? That's that. See, this is what I'm saying. This is the arrogance and exceptionalism. Rashi, I'm gonna let you chime in just a second, but I have to. I want to go to Africa for a minute. So America threatens Africa. Um, when Sergei Lavrov had a trip to Africa, he made a round, and Africa showed their support to the Eastern Bloc. And then what is his name? The Secretary Blinken goes there, and his trip wasn't as successful, and he goes there trying to dictate. But the South African president and other regional players said, don't dictate to us anymore. We are not that stomping ground anymore. So now check this out. There was an article that came out a few days ago where now America, she believes that Russia and China may open up military bases in Africa. And she's saying that this is, she will not permit military bases in Africa.
Unacceptable.
First of all,
This is
it's
unacceptable.
unacceptable. Do you see the arrogance? Hold on. First of all, you don't own Africa. You do not own Africa. You have no say over what goes on in Africa. What if Africa said it's unacceptable for you to have bases in Europe? How would you
It
take that?
goes back. It goes back to, as we've been talking on this. They consider themselves the king, and everybody else is my subjects.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't care what you think about anything. How if the king can have 800 bases, but you can't have one. And if you do, look, he got one base. It's like what he's doing now. Biden come on television talking about it's unacceptable to take a country by force.
Mm-hmm.
Haven't you been doing that for the last 20, 30 years?
And
Was it
unacceptable
unacceptable for you to go bomb Libya? Was it unacceptable for you to go bomb Syria? Was it unacceptable and take some of their land and stuff? Was it unacceptable to go and bomb Afghanistan and take them over for 20 years? Was it unacceptable that you bombing Libya through your proxies? Was it unacceptable to bomb Iraq? See, this is what I keep saying. He don't see other people as people. He see other
right.
people as means to an end.
Yes.
He is not a moral man, and the scriptures tell you that a moral man is, we know who he's following, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
He feels that he has the right to go around and bomb anybody he wants, and nothing is ever gets said because I'm king.
Mm-hmm.
And he still thinks that way. He's still thinking that he's in the 1990s when the Soviet Union collapsed. This is what the Soviet Union or Russia then built back up, but he don't see what we conquered them people, and they shouldn't say anything when we dictate to them what we want them to do. You know, you are subservient to me, just like what's his name? Germany and Japan. Well, Germany and Japan are occupied countries. They
That's
can't
right.
say anything.
Mm-hmm. Well, that goes back to something. Again, how I just want people to put this in a relative term for them, because sometimes when we're talking, we may talk over people. So I'm going to break this down for you. I'm the king of analogies, so I like to give analogies. Say, for instance, I live in Pensacola, Florida, and yet I'm going through every neighborhood here, ransacking it, taking what I want. Okay. Say, for instance, you live in California. Say, for instance, you live in LA, and your cousin lives next door to you, and you say, well, you know what? I think I'm gonna set up a ice cream shop in my cousin's yard. Oh no, it's unacceptable. You cannot do that. I will not allow you to do that. Now that's your cousin on you guys' property, and I'm 2,800 miles away, and I'm trying to dictate to you what you can and can't do with your family. But all the while, I'm raising hell and causing havoc around the neighborhoods that I'm in and the neighborhoods that are around me, and I'm threatening you and your cousin. Make that make sense. Again, the reason I say these things is because people don't put that gray matter up there to work. They don't explode those brain cells
The reason
to
why
think.
the reason why you can do that, because you're an exception. There's no rules for you, right? I can do what I want to do because I'm me. What do they call it? What do they call it? I forget that. I'll think of it. Well, he just, the reason why he do things is, because it's him. It's okay because he's doing it, because I'm me. It's all right for me to do what nobody else can do.
Right.
Just because I'm me. I was put on. I'm walking on cloud 9, and everybody else is on the ground. and you should be thankful that I even take up my presence to come over and rob and steal from you. You should be on your knees, beg. Oh, he's stealing from us. Oh, thank you. Rip me off some more. That's the way he feels. It's the feudal area, the area of kings, and that's where he feels. You still think that he's a king of the world, and everybody else got to do what he says.
And I also want to touch on something that we talked about on the last show when we were talking about over in Africa, since we're on this subject of Africa. And for those of you who don't know, Africa is not a country, it's a continent. Because a lot of time they lump the whole of Africa together, and but when they talk about European nations, they talk about them individually and stuff like that. So we just want to open your eyes
and then,
to
Africa is way bigger than Europe, but they make it that Africa is a little bitty country, and Europe is the what did they say, that rules? What did they say, that the Africa, the civilized world, and they're talking about Europe, America, Canada, and Australia. Nobody else matters.
And New Zealand.
Well, that's Australia. It's right next door to it. It's the colonized countries of Europe. That's basically what it is. Anybody that's not colonized, and even the other countries around the world that he made up and colonized, he usually only deals with people from European descendants. 2 or 3 million people ruling 100 million people. That's all he's talking about.
Right.
He only sees himself, and he don't see you as a person.
And these maps, and we're going to get into what I'm connecting Africa with what we talked about a few days ago. But I want to give it to you in the true perspective, because these maps that you get, it shows these African nations being small, and you see European nations being huge and stuff like that. And in reality, it's vice versa. And so, to give you a true size of Africa before we go further on Africa, because most people are not aware of this, because they have been indoctrinated through propaganda about this. So I'm going to give you a true view of Africa. The size of Africa is so large that you can fit the whole of the European continent. Listen at one time, listen to me good. The whole of the European continent, the whole of the Indian subcontinent, the whole of the United States, China, and Japan inside of Africa, and still have room for a few more countries. That's the true scope of the size of Africa.
Before they split Sudan in two, Sudan was bigger than the United States.
Yeah, outside of Alaska. When you add Alaska, Sudan was just barely smaller than the United States.
Some more of that stealing land, and me and my children was asking, well, who gave him all of this land? Where did he get it from? So, Russia, all that land. Well, who gave the Russians all that land?
They took it. You can see
same thing with America.
Centuries.
Who gave America all this land? And then between him and Russia, gonna sell Australia. It don't belong to you. He's great for doing that. Something that's not his. He's, like I said, I think we talked about this before. About they had some man that was on television selling plots on Mars.
Yeah. Now, we talked.
If you get to Mars, this is a piece of paper here to say you own that part of the land.
Yeah,
he ain't gonna tell you how to get there. But once you get there, this is your legal deed to say you own it. Well, who the hell gave you permission to sell it? It's not yours.
Right. So
same thing with America. Who
that's
gave
that
America?
Exceptionalism.
He stole.
That's that exceptionalism.
I forgot you are exceptionalism, huh?
And so we talked on the subject of Uganda and the land forces saying that an attack on Russia is an attack on Africa, and how Africa would stand with the Eastern Bloc. Okay, and we talked about how within a matter of 24 hours, Uganda was hit with an outbreak of Ebola, which is ground zero for America's biolabs in Africa. Uganda is ground zero for testing of biolabs in Africa, right? And so now check this out. Within 36 hours, I want you to Google this stuff. I'm not making this stuff up. Within 36 to 48 hours after that occurred, guess what happened? 2 Ugandan military helicopters crashed, carrying military officers and I believe elite troops, just ironically crashed. What are the odds of that? And then right after that, America comes out saying that it is unacceptable for Russia or China to set up military bases in Africa, when America has illegally set up bases throughout North Africa.
Oh, let's go to another one, brother. Another one of your same thing. The European in Germany, they start protesting. Let's open up Nord Stream 2. The next day it get hit.
Yeah. Oh, we're gonna hold up. I'm glad you brought that up. We're gonna play a clip. We're gonna play a clip on this, and we'll see who stands to benefit the most, and who, throughout all of these accusations that we will not allow Nord Stream 2 to go through, right? And who's interest it is.
And then you ask, ask them about it. They say it was a coincidence. It's a coincidence that it happened. That's all it is.
And remember,
it wasn't my fault.
And remember, a week prior to that, NATO was conducting war games right in the exact area using underwater drones over the gas pipelines.
And from what I understand, that this patch of sea is has sensors, a
And
great
cameras.
many sensors in there. Yeah, that just nobody can just roll in and start doing this. They got sensors all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
They will know who. Even if it's one man, don't have to be a ship. They can see one man sitting there off in there, and then all of a sudden, boom! And well, yeah, we were surprised that it happened.
Yeah. Now we're gonna see who, since you brought that up and in connection to what we're talking about. See, like we tell you, we like to give you the facts and nothing but the facts so that you can do your own summation and come up with a reasonable conclusion instead of being putting stuff and forcing it upon you through propaganda. We give you the facts and we lay out stuff so that you can make your own decision.
What is that old television show, Dragnet, with Joe Friday?
Yeah,
Nothing but the
truth and
facts.
nothing but the truth. Yeah. And
Nothing
so
but the
check
facts.
this out. So we're gonna play this. This is about a 2 or 3 minute clip. Okay. Oh, before I play it, I don't want no problems from the algorithm. So let me put up the what is it, the disclaimer or whatever about us using these clips, because if you don't, they'll say, well, you didn't put the disclaimer up, so you're suspended for 2 weeks, and then they'll just erase the video. So we're going to put up this 15-second disclaimer. So bear with us as we put up the 15-second disclaimer. Okay, we're back. Okay, the 15-second disclaimer was up. I guess it was 15 seconds. I can't remember the second. But anyway, we're going to play a clip for you. And remember that these clips, the first 2 parts of it, were done a year or 2 or 3 before the explosion of the pipelines over in Europe. And we want you to pay close attention to the direct threats made by not only the neoliberal in office, Victoria Nuland, the one who said F the EU when she said that America had invested over $5 billion to overthrow the democratically elected president and his administration of Viktor Yanukovych in Ukraine to install their man Yatsenyuk to take over Ukraine. And when it was asked about, well, what about the European Union and how they feel, and Russia, they didn't know that Russia had recorded it, and Russia had already plotted certain things, but they should have acted on it. And so Russia revealed with the tape, the secret taping, that Victoria Nuland, who is married to Robert Keegan, who has a think tank connected to American supremacy and a new American century, who is a bona fide neoliberal. She continues to go in and out of government through successive administrations, regardless of whether it's Republican or Democrat.
That's right. Don't care no Republican or Democrat. She's still there.
She's still there.
But what was most bluntly about that is that she was picking the leader. Oh, should we put him over? No, we don't need.
That's my man. Yatsenyuk is my man.
That's that. What about so and so? No, we don't need him today. It's like when they overthrew Panama. The guy who the little puppet that they made in Panama, they swore him in on an American warship out in the Atlantic. Yeah. I swear to the empire that I'll do whatever you want. And then run around hollering about democracy. Yeah. Democracy, this. Democracy only complies with whatever they want. Their needs and whatever they decide, then it's a democracy. But if it's somebody else, we don't care about no democracy.
Everybody smash the like button also. Please, if you're on YouTube, smash the like button. Hit the thumbs up, please. Hit the thumbs up so the algorithm can put us in the system and stuff like that. Because they continue to not put us in the system and continue to suppress numbers and everything. So you can help by hitting the like button, okay? Please do that. Now, also, as I was telling you, these notice that no so-called conservative alternative media ever speaks about this. And I'm going to play the clip, but I have to put it in perspective first. That regardless to which administration is in office, these neoliberals and these neocons, they continue to go through each administration. So if Donald Trump was so different, then why the hell did he have some of the same people from the previous administration in his administration? These are things that are not talked about. These are two different. They two sides of the same coin. You understand? And so
this Victoria Nuland was in with Bush and in with Clinton.
No and different. In with Obama.
That's right. It's the game on the people. It's like a quarter, right? Tails is a quarter and heads is a quarter. Right?
Right. It's just two different sides of the same coin.
The two different sides of the same thing.
And that's how they get these people. They get that they touch on some emotion or some feeling in them, and that way that they can be puppeted by the puppeteers behind closed doors, and the people actually think that they're pushing for change, or because the people are speaking to some issue that they hold deep to their heart. But all of this is a work of the hidden hand behind the scene. But check this out. As we talk about this,
we are taught that democracy means the rule of demons.
Demons, that's right. That's right.
And they manipulate. They manipulate you. You know, you gotta vote. We gotta vote. They've been voting for hundreds of years, and have you changed anything?
It's only become worse.
The king is still ruling.
So on that, listen. We promised you this. We're gonna play the clip. This is a short clip. It is 2 minutes and 52 seconds. That's how long it is. Just check this out, and then after that, you tell me who benefited the most and who blew the pipeline up. Okay? Check this out. Let's see if they'll let it play.
With regard to Nord Stream 2, we continue to have very strong and clear conversations with our German allies, and I want to be clear with you today. If Russia invades Ukraine, one way or another, Nord Stream 2 will not move forward.
If Russia invades, that means tanks or troops crossing the border of Ukraine again. Then there will be no longer a Nord Stream 2. We will bring an end to it.
How will you do that exactly, since the project and control of the project is within Germany's control?
We will. I promise you, we'll be able to do it.
As you know, energy is the cash cow that enables these kinds of military deployments. So Putin needs the energy to flow as much as the consumers need it. But more broadly, we have been counseling Europe for almost a decade now to reduce its dependence on Russian energy.
Today, we are also dealing with an act of sabotage. We do not know the details of what happened yet, but we can clearly see that it is an act of sabotage, an act that probably marks the next stage in the escalation of the situation we are dealing with in Ukraine.
The Washington Post got right to it. Putin, they declared, is now weaponizing the Nord Stream pipelines. According to the Canadian ambassador to the UN, Vladimir Putin has decided to use, quote, pollution as an act of war.
As you all know, these pipelines weren't pumping gas into Europe at this time. NS2 was never operational, as you guys know. NS1 has not been operational for weeks because Putin has weaponized energy, and we have said this many times before. This just drives home the importance of our efforts to work together to get alternative gas supplies to Europe and to support efforts to reduce gas consumption and accelerate true energy independence by moving to clean energy economy.
But we should tell you that, maybe not coincidentally, today a brand new pipeline was unveiled, a pipeline that carries non-Russian natural gas in roughly the same area as Nord Streams 1 and 2. This is called the Baltic Pipe. It was inaugurated in Poland. It will carry natural gas from Norway through Denmark to Poland and other countries nearby. And it's likely to do very well since now it has less competition.
So I have to address a few things before you chime in. First of all, the very nations where the pipeline passes through are the nations that are now trying to enter into NATO under U.S. auspices. Also, the Polish part of this equation. Immediately when the pipeline was blown up, the former Polish foreign minister tweeted, "Thank you, USA, for this," because he knew that the United States, and I want you to understand, the former Polish foreign minister, how does he have a connection in this? He was on the ground with Victoria Nuland in Ukraine, in Kiev, in 2014 when they did the regime change and ousted Viktor Yanukovych and put in their guys Yatsenyuk, and now what was the Polish the chocolate king name, the corrupt guy that came after him,
Poroshenko.
Now check this out. So after this blast took place, this is what Vladimir. Now the spokesperson said something. Putin has weaponized energy. What the hell has the United States been doing for the longest? Weaponizing energy. And also, why have no one spoken to the fact that sanctions is economic warfare? So you telling me that you can sanction my financial sector, you can sanction my trade, you can sanction my shipping, you can sanction my grain, you can sanction all of these things which give me finance, but I can't retaliate? Man, you are crazy as hell.
Like you said, it is a form of war, economic war, sanction. But what it is if you can bomb me, but you don't think I can bomb you, that's that arrogance of me being the king. And then everybody else, it's like the emperor's clothes, right? The emperor's walking around with no clothes. Everybody see that he don't have any clothes on, but don't dare say that he got no clothes on. Everybody with a half of a brain know American investigation. Why? We all know you did it, but in his mind, he is king, and everybody else must do as myself. He's riding the horse of. He's been riding the horse of leadership around the world so long that he thinks this is my ingotten. That's it. The divine right of kings. That's what they call it. The divine right of king. I did something. It must be all right because I did it. Right.
That's right.
And I've been ruling for so long that I can't see myself taking a back step to anyone. And that's how he deals with the other the nation. He deals as a king, and the other nations are his subjects.
Right. So on that note, this is what Putin said this morning. Vladimir Putin, the president of the Russian Federation. It says Putin names orchestrator of Nord Stream blast, and this is what the article reads. It says sanctions against sanctioning Russia is no longer enough for the U.S., which has now switched to sabotage. The president claimed The U.S. orchestrated the blast on the Nord Stream 1 and 2 gas pipelines in the Baltic Sea, which delivered Russian natural gas to Germany because they obviously benefit from it, President Vladimir Putin said on Friday. Now, stop right there for a minute. As Rashid said, and we're going to double back on what he said, because what he says makes a lot of sense. With all of these cameras, underground cameras, monitors, and sensors, it should not take days to pinpoint who and what caused the blast. So are they wiping the cameras and the tape clean so that they can put more pressure on Russia, so that they can say that
Now,
this was a terrorist
we
act
know
of war?
he's not above doing that. We know he's not above doing when they said, when they stormed the Capitol, all of the CIA, and all of a sudden, all of our tweets and phone stuff just disappeared. It got wiped out.
Yeah. So what we're looking at is, listen, a lot of, let me put this in a perspective that people can understand. America, as Rashid said, has ruled so long, and she's been in a dominant position for so long. She has become inebriated with wielding power. She has become inebriated with dictating to everybody else. And now that you see a reemergence of Russia, which they thought they had finally subjugated Russia after the collapse of the Soviet Union, they thought that they had finally subjugated their greatest threat. And then with the rise of China, they thought that they can manage China's rise. And if China got out of place, they can push it back down. But now China is emerging as the #1 global economic power, the #1 or #2 political power. And check this out. Militarily, it is now on par with the empire. And so America sees this, and her doctrine, her stated doctrine, is to prevent any nation or combination of nations to become peer powers to her. So she is seeing not only Russia reemerge from the ashes, she is seeing the rise of a non-white nation, which is China, and she's seeing the rise of an Islamic nation, which is Iran, after decades upon decades upon decades of sanctioning Iran, overthrowing the legitimate government of Mossadegh and putting in the brutal dictator, the Shah. And
they had a HBO had a film that they got going now about the Shah and that whole episode of how he fell.
Yeah. Well, listen, with America doing, she is coming to the realization that her time is limited. As I told you on a previous show that we did about a year ago, America did a study about the rise of China, the reemergence of Russia, the rise of Iran as a regional power in West Asia, and global hotspots. And they said that they had between 12 to 18 months. This was last year, at the beginning of I think it's either at the beginning or the end of last year, between 12 and 18 months to stymie the rise of China, to prevent Russia's reemergence, to suppress Iran's regional influence, and to prevent these hotspots from moving east and joining on with these centers of power. And that was then. So now when we look at the position today, and we look at the job situation in America, when we look at the market situation, remember, there was just an article out about a few days ago that said America has lost $10 trillion in wealth in the stock market crash of the last few weeks. And we look at the tightening positioning of her military. Russia, Iran, and China are putting constraints on America. She's not used to having limitations of her military prowess. So what she's trying to do now is goad them into a confrontation where she still believes that she may have some edge militarily, but she knows that the clock is running out because of that timetable that her military had done, and her intelligence agencies had done, and they redid it and did it over and over and over, and following that report, they also did over 18 war game scenarios, and in each war game, America lost more quicker and more devastatingly from these nations. So now you can see the urgency of why she's doing these things. She's trying to maintain dollar hegemony. And before you chime in on that, I want to play this short 32-second clip, which goes hand in hand with the explosions of the pipeline, the military, the U.S. and Western influx of troops into Africa, into strategic areas of Africa where there's oil, gas, and minerally rich areas in Latin America and in what they call the Middle East, which is North Africa or West Asia, these areas that are minerally rich with oil and gas. And one of the main reasons why America is doing that is because of this. I want you to pay close attention to this 32 seconds.
Quite substantially, because they've got the main companies, the main countries that use US dollars for international trade are the oil producers. They're by far the major volume of trade. So if oil producers are saying we don't need to use the US dollar anymore, then that weakens the power of the United States financial sector. And there are arguments as to that being one of the main reasons we're going into Iraq, not the Twin Towers, but to try to stop the formation of a non-US currency for international trade.
So we see that he said, this is why America is doing this, but check this out. He said that they're trying to stop transactions in non-US dollar trade. And just so happened 2 days ago, it was announced that the BRICS nations are working on a global currency to rival the dollar, the euro, and the sterling pound. Now, isn't that ironic that all of these things are taking place right now?
Haven't we been saying that for years? That's what they should do. For years we've been saying. But what I was going to say is you must understand the leadership of America. They don't have the wise people that they once did. Nixon and Henry Kissinger worked very hard to separate China and Russia. Henry Kissinger about 100 years old and Nixon's dead. These morons in leadership today doing everything they can to push China and Russia together. And one of these economic gurus was saying China's economic power, along with Russia's military power, they are an unstoppable juggernaut. You can't stop them. You cannot outproduce China. It is impossible. You got 1.5 billion people working in unison to produce stuff. They don't have people arguing like they got over here in America. America's a divided society. You know what? I don't want to do what you want to do, and you don't want to do what I want to do, and they never get anything done. And then you hear them talking about, here's another thing. You hear them talking about they want to reindustrialize America. You ain't got no machinery. You got nobody with the skill. Like one guy was talking about making television. Who in the hell in America can make a television nowadays? Put up a plant and mass produce televisions and cell phones and TV, everything. You just can't do it. Yeah. Their fall is systemic. They cannot stop what's coming because it's been laid years ago when they got together and came up and took all of their manufacturing and shipped it over because they could make instead of paying you $20, they can make they can pay some foreign worker 20 cents. I can keep all of that money. Yeah, and I can keep all of that money. But the poor fool didn't understand that laid the foundation for his fall. Right. Once, like you said, once the American dollar is no longer the world's currency, what they said they exported all of their inflation and stuff. If you got the world currency, you can do anything. You can just print up money to from here to the moon, and nobody say anything. And the other countries can't print money like you, so they got to take a subservient nature. I mean, a position. But now that they getting off of that worthless money, and you ain't got no natural resources to compete with them, who goes down? The emperor has been exposed as having no clothes, right?
Yes, that's right. We are, again, this is a slow motion demolition of the American Republic, and we're watching it in real time. So I put this on the screen. I want you to look at the headlines. BRICS countries discussing creation of single currency, Russia ambassador says. So now, look, we are watching the same. How ironic is it that America is demonizing the very nations in that organization, the BRICS? They're trying to turn India out against Russia and China. They are trying to subjugate South Africa. They are trying to prevent China's breakout capacity. They're trying to wage a war, a hybrid economic and covert war on Russia. And they are trying to stop Delula from becoming president again after they overthrew him in a coup and put him in jail. And he is now assured of the Brazilian presidency again. So before you comment on that, Rashid, I want to go back to the clip that I just played while people are letting this marinate in their head. The headline right here. Remember, everyone who's listening, remember this title right here as you listen to that clip over again, because it is very important and it gives you an understanding and insight to the madness and the I would say the unhinged attacks of America against these nations right here. So pay close attention again to this clip.
With regard to Nord Stream 2.
Quite right substantially because
I'm sorry, I hit the wrong one. Hold on one second.
The main countries that use US dollars for international trade are the oil producers. They're by far the major volume of trade. So if oil producers are saying we don't need to use the US dollar anymore, then that weakens the power of the United States financial sector. And there are arguments as to that being one of the main reasons we're going into Iraq, not the Twin Towers, but to try to stop the formation of a non-US currency for international trade.
So now, before you comment, she knows what's going on. Someone whispered in my ear a few days ago and told me that President Xi Jinping, Li Qiangkao, I think that's how you pronounce his name, who is the premier of China, and the Chinese Communist Party, the law-making part, have come to the agreement, and Xi Jinping has given out an order to the Chinese central bank and other banks to prepare for the unloading of more U.S. treasuries. So with that said, you can actually see why America is intensifying her threats and her acts against China through Taiwan. And now we also see that the Russian ambassador announces this just a couple of days ago, and we understand why the pipelines got blown up. We understand why there's chaos in Europe and in North Africa now. Go ahead, comment.
That clip that you played about him saying that the towers got blown up and the war, they seen this coming years ago, right? They seen that their fall 20-something years ago, and they was making moves. See, you got to understand, he has long-ranging plans. He don't act on stuff that he's doing right here in today. He sees something because he's on top. It's like somebody on the Empire State Building, right? He can look around and see a long way with a cat down.
YouTube is messing with your microphone now because we're getting heavy into it. Or StreamYard or whatever. So Rashid, when you chime back in, you'll have to repeat some of the stuff that you said. I know they're messing with your microphone, but this is what we go through live on the air as we give you the truth. Are you there? or I guess he has to get back aboard. They have to, his stream has to reconnect or whatever. But again, we are watching the demolition of America, and it goes back to Richard Nixon taking the world off the gold and the silver standard because America was printing too much money. So we lost his signal. He'll chime back in. He'll get the link and come right back through. Okay, but and so with that said, it even, as I told you before, it even started happening in the 60s, but you were not aware of it. You were not aware of it due to the fact that they were taking minute amounts of silver out of the coinage, and they were replacing it with copper and nickel and zinc, and now they're even robbing the nickel out of the coins. This is how desperate the country has become. And remember that upwards into 1965, your coinage was silver, was made 30, 40, and 90% silver. That is no longer the case. The only coin after 65 that had silver in it was the half dollar, right? They stopped making the half dollar when they had no more silver to put in the half dollar. So you see an economic shift here, what I'm trying to show you. So America was going through a economic meltdown then. It just, people were not aware of it. And so when she and Britain got together, because the British pound sterling is tied so heavily to the US dollar, and the New York Stock Exchange is tied so heavily to the London Exchange, and the US Gold Exchange is tied so heavily to the London Gold Exchange, and London, I might add, has the largest gold exchange in the world. So they manipulate the gold prices to keep the dollar and the pound at a certain premium. Okay. All right. So I'm getting a message. Hold on one second. Hold on one second. Uh, uh, oh, there you go. Brother Rashid is back in. Okay, I got your message. Let me finish this, brother. I told you when we start rapping, they start messing with it. But check this out. And they start cutting down the viewers. They start suppressing the viewers. Everything. I watch all of it on. I got 2 different computers up. Plus, I have my 2 phones up, so I'm watching the analytics on each one of them, and so I'm seeing how they are suppressing the numbers on one. One will have 20, the other have 8, the other one will have 30, the other one will have 2. So I'm watching this in real time. But again, let me go back to something. So America started losing her positioning then. Florida. And as I told you, Charles de Gaulle saw that America, her printing was being sped up, and it was starting to expand, and they did the numbers and said, hold on, America is spending and making budgetary commitments that outweigh and exceeds her gold holdings. So de Gaulle, being a former general and the prime minister of France, or the president of France, said, hold on. Hey, you need to cut back that spending there. We got a lot of your treasuries over here. And Richard Nixon allied fears. He talked to his allies and tried to push their fears down, but de Gaulle wasn't having it. He said, and Richard Nixon again said, the US dollar is as good as gold, right? And de Gaulle said, then give us gold. He wanted to take the treasury bonds and redeem them for the gold. And Richard Nixon was forced to take the US off the gold and the silver standard, which meant that the very base of American prominence, American wealth, and American power was
broken back then.
That's right. And now and it's almost like when I was talking to psychological the U.S. Psychological warfare analyst and former team leader, I forget, Scott Bennett, and I think it was him. I posed to him this question. I said, well, isn't that like, is what we're watching with America is like the snake? You get the snake, and you may have a cobra, or you might have a rattlesnake, or you might have some kind of poisonous snake, or even a constrictor. You get one of those, and you cut off the head. The body contorts and moves for hours, even though the head is detached from the body. And only after so many hours does rigor mortis set in, and the muscles in the body cease to move. But even while this is going on, if it's a poisonous snake, you have to bury the head, because even though the head is detached, the venom glands are still there and can produce poison to anyone who may be pricked by the fangs or whatever. He said that's a good analogy. This is what America's economic system is. America's the head was cut off, completely cut off in 1971. And from that time up until the day, the muscles of the American economic prowess continued to contort. And now what we're watching is rigor mortis set in as Russia, China, and the BRIC nations bury the venomous head. That's what's going on.
Also, gold has always been money for thousands of years. Printed paper is not a currency that anybody would trade in, because it can go up and go down. It's got to be backed by something. What they're doing in the Eastern Bloc is going to be backed by gold and commodities.
Yeah,
America ain't got either one of them. So guess who was out, right? Guess who's out on the outside looking in?
That's right. The Western world.
Once again, their leadership is not as sharp as it once was.
Mm-hmm. But they've been smitten with the religion, brother. Listen, a lot of these Bible thumpers and Bible scholars, they don't understand scripture and they don't understand the fulfillment of prophecy, and that's why God told them that He would feed them their own flesh as if it were sweet wine. They would become inebriated over their own arrogance and hubris. And what we're seeing is, if you look at Victoria Nuland and you look at the people in the State Department, these are people, even Hillary Clinton and Zbigniew Brzezinski, who passed away. All of these people, the reason they are so preoccupied with that area over there next to Russia is because they are just very recent descendants of people from that area. That's and right. they have a strong grievance against Russia.
Hatred.
Yeah.
Anytime you walk around calling the Russians orcs.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or snow niggers. They call them snow niggers.
What the Russians did not understand, why do they treat me different? I got blue eyes, blonde hair, just like they do. But in their mind, you are not. Mm. In their mind, you are a mongrel. With the mongrel hordes ruled China, and they all mixed up in there and said, "No, you ain't one of us." And the Russians, for years, even with Peter the Great and the rest of them, trying to
move east. Move west.
Yeah, move west. Yeah, they wanted to be a part of Europe. But the people of Europe say, no, we don't want you. And this is what that's the reason why you can go over there and treat, while they was bombing up Lugansk and them for 8 years. NATO ain't never said, well, it's outrageous that they bombing it. Like that. The minute Russia put back, he's taken somebody by force. Well, didn't you take it by force? Didn't you set up the Victoria Nuland and pull a coup off? Did you do that? Yep. Once again, I can do what nobody else can do because I'm an exception.
But that is, I guess one day we'll give these so-called Bible thumpers a lesson in scripture, and we'll talk Bible, and we'll show them America's footprints all throughout there and how she was warned. This is most people don't realize that America is modern Babylon. She is the daughter. Her and England, they are the daughters of Babylon, and they fulfill the scriptures to the very T on the daughters of Babylon, because if you look in the scriptures, it said Babylon had daughters, and they were very rich and powerful and influential, and they dominated the global scene. This is nothing but America and England.
And this modern Babylon was a land surrounded by water that they thought that nobody could attack them because they were so far away.
And I'm glad you brought that up. And that's why day before yesterday, the Russian ambassador to the United States gave an interview. I believe it was to Newsweek, if I'm not mistaken. And he I'll see to come in. I'll come in on you come in a second. But in Newsweek, and he warned them. He said, "Hey, first of all, the language of threats," and I'm paraphrasing. That doesn't work with us. We're not Afghanistan, and you didn't even whip Afghanistan. We're not Syria. Hey, you better tone down those threats, because don't think he said, and he made sure he made this point. He said, we have been threatened in not so many in sly ways about a nuclear war, when our president never said anything about using nuclear weapons. He said, but we want to assure the Americans that if nuclear war happens, whether it be with French nuclear weapons or British nuclear weapons, do not think that the two oceans which separate us will secure you. This will not be regional. This will go global, and you will be, they will hit you. This is what the Russian ambassador in the Newsweek interview said. He wanted to remind America that Russia is not no regional power. We have weapons more advanced than you, and we have more nuclear weapons than you. So don't threaten us, because we can fight.
Now, for the scripture, for like you say, the Bible thumpers and all of these people with scriptures, they don't understand that this is talking about today. Even Prophet Muhammad talked about smoke rising up to the heavens, right? Nuclear bombs. Right. I don't believe in none of that stuff, but everything that they said, you can trace it to what's happening right today. Also, the scriptures teach us about building your house on a bloody foundation.
That's right.
Woe to he who builds his house on a bloody foundation. Now, stealing somebody's land, ain't that a bloody foundation? Murdering them all, ain't that a bloody foundation? Raping, robbing, chopping them, enslaving them, ain't that a bloody foundation? And the man of Europe, that's how he got all his wealth, against what his scriptures tell him. A bloody foundation, he done got everything on that. And then don't want nobody to say anything about it. But we know, like you said, we see what's happening. Modern Babylon is falling today. And it's America. That's who it is. And it's for all these, the Bible, like it makes you think that this stuff no. The most important time is between when God and the devil clash to see who's gonna rule the planet. That's right. This is the time. And when when the man of Europe can sit around and push a couple of buttons, he can destroy the whole entire globe. Now, when God in the scriptures would come out, the most deadly thing in Moses' time was somebody could throw a bow and arrow, or somebody could throw a rock and hit somebody. A God comes through the scriptures. But the most important time in history, when the enemy of God can wipe out all of humanity, where's God? He's nowhere to be seen. But no, he did do what he brought somebody here that to warn us of this time in which we are in. And just so happens,
listen.
If you want to listen and you want to see what's happening, read this book. And this one right here also.
And put the other one right here also. Put the other one up too.
Read both of them. And it will give you an insight on everything you see. This right here talks about what we are seeing today in the global finances, the global war, down to the letter. It is a
The
blueprint.
geopolitics, everything. The geopolitics,
Everything.
everything. So I'm telling you, listen. And Rashid, he said, "Where's God?" Listen, God is on the scene and He's doing His work that Scriptures predicted that He would do. Now, remember that at the end of Scripture, at the end of prophecy, that the most powerful nation would be brought to her knees, right? And now, who is always talking about they're the richest, the most powerful, and most influential nation on the planet? I mean, not my words. I'm saying use their words for
against
prophecy.
them.
And so, if this is the case, and it is, then this must be modern Babylon. This must be the one whom God said that He would bring to her knees. And remember, in the Bible, it talks about the nations after America was exposed, or after modern Babylon was exposed, and nations would be like, "Is this the giant that had the whole world shook, had everybody trembling in
Is
fear?
this Goliath? Is this Goliath?
Is this the one that had the whole?" And it said all nations, small and great, would buck up against her. Then what is going on? I mean, look at Africa. When did you ever think that Africa would push for its own policies to be heard and its own independence to be secured because it had been subjugated by Europe? When did you think Latin America would rise up and forge an alliance with the Eastern world?
When would little bitty Venezuela bucking up against the empire and telling them where to go and what to do? Once upon a time, Venezuela, the leadership wouldn't dream. Even in his dreams, he would not disobey America.
Yeah. So we're looking at and this is the main thing. I have to say this too, because I believe that most people who study Scripture believe that prophecy is forever. There's a culmination point. There's a zenith. There's a cutoff point to prophecy, and we're in the ending times of prophecy. I want you to understand that. And that is why the greatest power, the one world's richest power, the
shining city on the hill,
that exceptional nation is suffering untold turmoil and collapse, not just around the world, but within her very borders. And she is, there's a saying that we say on this show, and it's a statement that we took from someone in the past. He who defends everything defends nothing and leaves himself exposed. With America's thousands of military bases around the globe trying to dictate to everybody else what they should and should not do, can and can't not do, and funneling money that could be used at home to eradicate poverty, homelessness, and hunger. But she is investing in war material and weapons of mass destruction.
She ain't got no money for the homeless, like you said. She ain't got no money for that.
Or to feed people. Not here.
No, I ain't got no money to educate people. They getting upset because they're gonna take a little bit of relief on the guys that went to school. How dare no? We can't do that. We can't forgive some of their debt. They gotta pay it all. Then the banks get up there and rip off $17 trillion, and they don't have to pay a cent back. Can't you see that this is an evil country? And it's the reason why God's weapons is what you seen just hit Florida the other day.
That's right.
And go ready to hit Carolina. That's God's weapons. And the closer we get to the end of this, of Goliath, we'll see that happening more and more and more.
And again, as I said to you, look at her. She never has compassion for her people or people of color within her own borders. To think about this. You go and ask for energy aid. We don't have that in the budget. You go and ask for a home. We don't have that in the budget. There's millions upon millions of people out on the streets, right? And to show you how arrogant and how much they don't value human life. They will pass by them on a daily basis, have skyscrapers that are empty, and demolish them before they let the people go and live in those people to try to get them off the street. And then they'll find billions and billions and billions more for weapons systems and find billions more to bribe the nations to keep them close to them. That's crazy. That's insanity.
Out here, they had a shoe store that went out of business. Instead of giving the shoes to the poor, they was cutting them and throwing them in the trash. If they got too much milk, he'll go and open it up and pour it down the sewer.
That's capitalism.
If he got crops, he'll go burn it. Instead of, oh, I got too much wheat, burn it. We can't give it to the poor. Matter of fact, in some of the places, they even make a law that you can't give it to the poor.
Yep. And
then run around hollering about, I'm Jesus, I'm with Jesus. What a joke, right?
Yeah.
What a joke. Now, with Jesus,
they put that over on the people.
Would Jesus go and pull milk down the drain instead of giving it to the poor? Would Jesus burn up all of the crops instead of helping the people, the poor people? Would Jesus send $1 billion? He gave Ukraine $65 billion for weapons, and for the man that's living on the street, he ain't got 1 cent for you. Matter of fact, it's your fault that you on the street.
Yeah, that's what he said.
Now, would Jesus do that? You need to think about these things.
And think about, and I want the people to put it in a perspective. All of these war games and all of these troop deployments, weapons deployments, all of these military bases have expenditures, huge expenditures and so America must allocate money that she does not have. So that means she must borrow from the future, or borrow, in words, from the very nation she's holding the gun at and threatening and trying to destabilize. She got to go to them to beg for the money so that she can fund her weapon systems and fund her escapades around the globe. Now, if Rashid is the moneymaker, and I'm borrowing money from Rashid on a daily basis to cover my expenditures, to keep my family above water, to keep my household from being repossessed and my household eating bread. How do you think Rashid would react if he comes outside and see me stabbing his son, or come outside seeing me cutting his daughter, or seeing me light his car on fire? Do you think that he would continue funding me? Huh?
And what we're saying about the money, because America's money ain't worth nothing. Like I said, the way they do it is they go on a computer and punch up how much. Okay, you need $100 million. Okay, you got $100 million. It's worth nothing. Matter of fact, even monopoly money is better, because at least you get some paper in monopoly money. With this thing, it's just in cyberspace. It's worth nothing. Now, what are we talking about when Brother Rashid said have to borrow money? They're talking about goods and services. I got to get my oil from somewhere else. I got to get my military grade weapons of cobalt and zinc and my food and stuff from everybody else. The nations will wake up and find and realize that giving America or her minions anything is throwing it down a bottomless pit you can never get any money from. You can never repay what you're giving her, because she is destitute. She admits to being trillions of dollars in debt. How quadrillions of dollars? How in the world can you ever get out of that?
And listen, and remember, Scripture talked about how this nation was sanctioned the world, and then in the end of her time, the nations around the world would sanction her. And we're watching the building up of these alliances outside of NATO, outside of America's AUKUS, and outside of America's Quad, and her, even outside of the United Nations, because America still manipulates that, because she is the dominant force, political force,
Her
and finance.
and England is the one that set it up.
That's right.
So, isn't Putin and them talking about they're gonna go around the Security Council? Russia's veto don't mean anything to it. He never lives up to his agreements.
That's right.
This is what you gotta read. He never lives up to anything. His word means nothing. Right. His word is like turning on a light for darkness. You can never catch it.
Good one. And you know, and as we watch I call the slow motion demolition of the so-called greatest military and economic power in the annals of the last 6,000 years, which is America.
The greatest military in the universe.
Think about how she is being brought to poverty because of arrogance. See, God calls her to be inebriated on the things that she used to have, in the power that she once wielded. And so she doesn't have a reverse gear. She doesn't know how to go in reverse, even when her policy,
or she can't
plainly show.
She don't even have a neutral. She don't even have a neutral what you can think about it.
She doubles down and triple down and quadruple down on failing policies. And the world is watching and saying, these people are insane. And so when you are smitten by the Lord of the worlds, your leadership is not a leadership that can be dependent on to make rational decisions that can guide your nation in a dark time. Without the lamp or guidance of God, you are trying to steer a ship in stormy waters without the lighthouse, without any lights. And so either you're going to get overturned by the waves, or you're going to run ashore or get hit, go over some rocks and be the Titanic and sink. And what we're watching, politically, economically, and geopolitically, is the America sinking like the Titanic. Go ahead.
It's like you said, like a fog, right? Like walking around in a fog. I done been in fog so thick that you couldn't see your hand in front of your face.
Yeah.
And that's what she got. She can't see anything. Or like you said, the only thing she do is got that a gear going straight forward. And it's like the horse with the blinders on, right? He can't see right or left. Only thing he can see where his master tells him to go. That's all he can see. And that's all the empire can see. Everybody else is bucking up against me, and I gotta fight.
Yeah. And she continues to alienate. Look, she's alienate Turkey by, listen to me good, Turkey, the second largest military power in her terrorist organization called NATO, which I call the North Atlantic Terrorist Organization. They are now, because Turkey is working economically with Russia in cases, now America is trying to put pressure on Turkey by, first of all, we knew that she was backing the Kurds in northern Turkey, northern Syria, which Turkey itself got itself in that position because they should have never allowed those terrorists to come through their southern borders into Syria to destabilize Syria. So that's on Turkey on that one. But now America is coming from the north of Turkey, and she is now militarizing the Greek island, the disputed islands between Greece and Turkey, which under international law and international treaty, that Greece is not allowed to put any military weapons or any systems on the islands. In America, Turkey showed America, and they confronted America and Greece about this. They showed satellite images of American warships, American armored vehicles, American missiles now being deployed to that. That is to put pressure on Turkey and squeeze Turkey. But she don't realize she's alienating Turkey. She's alienating the second largest military power. So what we're watching is America's alienating enemies and friends alike.
once again, never trust the empire. Just ask the American Indian about all of the treaties he made, and he broke every last one of them.
But see,
Anybody that sit up and believe anything the empire do need to go and get their noodle examined. Because the empire, what he said, he's non-agreeable.
Yeah. He's agreeable, incapable.
Yeah, he can't help himself. It's in his nature. He'll promise you and then fail.
And look, now Turkey is waking up to the reality that America had a long design plan to balkanize Turkey. They wanted to balkanize Turkey also.
The same thing with Germany. Even though she's an occupied country, talking about America. With friends like this, you don't need any enemies.
Yeah. You can't trust
this winter. They gonna freeze. That all of their people gonna freeze.
Not just that. Did you hear the report? Did you read the report that came out yesterday when it says tens of thousands of European businesses and corporations are right on that line of becoming insolvent and becoming bankrupt, and tens of thousands of German businesses are preparing to shutter their doors permanently because of the fuel prices. And remember that America promised Europe that if Europe put these sanctions
rid of
in
Russian
place,
gas,
they would supply gas. Now, what's ironic about this is there was an article that just came out that says America is now suffering gas shortages. Now, what's the irony of this stuff, man? You're telling me that there's not a God on the scene that's orchestrating this, and he's moving all the chess pieces to bring down Babylon? For you not to be able to see this?
What the scripture say? Babylon the Great is fallen.
Fallen.
An angel called from heaven, said, Babylon the Great is fallen. Now, you've never had an empire like America. The little empires, a little regional, little local empires. This is a global empire. This is the empire. Rome is a secondary empire compared to America. The American president could call Indonesia and tell him what to do. Any country around the world he wanted to do, he must do with America. And it stopped when they overthrew Gaddafi. That made China and Russia take up and say, we can't deal with these people.
Right. And I'm going to address that too. I want to address that. I'm glad you brought that up. Let me touch on that real quick because I want to go into that a little bit because it has something to do with Iran also. Okay. And the reason why Russia and China stayed at arm's length with Iran as she was going through turmoil with the empire. I'm going to address that real quick.
Her problem. Yeah.
So when America double-crossed China and Russia in the UN Security Council with a bombing, because they said, if you do this, we won't intervene. We won't intervene. And what we're trying to do is get Gaddafi to the negotiating table, even though Gaddafi was saying, hey, let's negotiate. Get the terrorists out of here that are killing people, and we can negotiate. So China abstained. Russia allowed America and France and Britain to push through their resolution
because they had
on Gaddafi on Libya but they had ulterior motives. First of all, Sarkozy, who was the president at the time, was trying to prevent Muammar Gaddafi from dropping dime on him that Libya funded his presidential runs. And so Sarkozy was hook, line, and sinker into this to try to prevent. Oh, go ahead, and because I want to explain something that connects Iran with this. Go ahead.
I'm gonna let you finish. But what I'm saying is they made an agreement with Medvedev, who was the president at that time, that Gaddafi was supposed to take internal exile. They was not supposed to kill him. They were going to overthrow his government, and they're going to put their puppets in it, but they were not supposed to kill him. And once again, he never lives up to his agreements. They double-crossed Russia.
The deal was that his son would take over the helms, and Gaddafi would be in political exile, and he would be in Libya, but he would have no say in Libyan politics. Now, the reason they knew what Gaddafi was is because he talked to them in the convoy, and they told him for them to make sure that they knew where he was, put white flags over his convoy. And they put white flags over the convoy, and he was talking to them through satellite imagery, satellite phones, and Russia was involved, China was involved, and the West was involved. And as his convoy was making his route to what was supposed to be a safe zone, France gave the go-ahead for those mercenaries to surround it, and the United States sent in a drone strike, and it was one of the people who were close to Gaddafi that signaled to them which car he was in. And it blew the car up, but Gaddafi wasn't killed because he was in an armored vehicle. And so those terrorists or those mercenaries surrounded, and they raped the women, his female vanguard, and killed him. And then they took him hostage, and they took pictures talking about he came out of the sewage. Remember, they said the same thing about Saddam Hussein. See, this is what they do. They lie. Saddam Hussein was in the gutter, and we found him in the gutter. We found Gaddafi hiding in a sewage tunnel or something. Man, this is madness. But I want to get to something. When they made an agreement with Medvedev, who was the president of Russia, Putin was against that agreement, I might add. Putin he wanted Russia to take a more firm stance against that, but he was the prime minister at the time. When they backstabbed Medvedev, that's when Putin decided he was going back to the presidency, and because he knew that Russia would be betrayed from the agreements that they had with the United States, and the United States started showing it by pulling out of all of those strategic international agreements. So at the time, people forget this, that Iran was in lockstep with the United States media because they had grievances with Gaddafi. And they were reporting, if you go back and look, Press TV was reporting similar stories that the West, you could hardly differentiate the stories. And I talked about this on another platform, remember? And so this made China and Russia hold up and say, hold on, whoa. So Iran had to distance itself from that before Russia and China really engaged politically and geopolitically with Iran. What did you say?
Remember, Vladimir Putin watched Gaddafi getting killed over and over and over and over and over and over again. Mm-hmm. That's what democracy will do for you. And so Vladimir Putin, from that point on, he went against it. They're not going along with the empire in anything. And then the Chinese could see that I'm next. If we we allow them to get rid of Russia, push Russia aside, put their puppets in there, and everybody's guns will be pointed at her.
Mm-hmm. So we're watching. This thing is so intertwined, intermixed. Excuse me. Excuse me, but it's so intertwined and intermixed geopolitically that you have to follow each dot to catch up with the snake and catch it by its tail and then by its head or something like that, so that you can see the whole effect of the snake and its bite on the people that it afflicts. And what we're watching is America lose power, and she thought that she had a plan to overcome prophecy, and that she thought she had a plan to remain the global preeminent superpower. But now she's realizing that not only are the nations gathering against her, but time and prophecy stands against her. And this is why she's now threatening the nuclear war. That's why because she understands that she can no longer hold. Go ahead.
All of the prophecies of the old Bible and Holy Quran are talking about her. It's the time when God and the devil do battle to see who's going to rule the planet. And they got to, the reason why you must have a war of Armageddon or a Malhammer is to get rid of the main troublemaker on the planet. the guy who's got his fingers in everywhere. Yeah. You go and search 9.9% of the trouble around the world, and you see the empire's hands in it. And he got a huge military. And you must bring down that military to be in order to bring down a strong man, you must bind him. Take away his military with all them 800 bases. Make it where he ain't got no base except the one at his house or at his home. Then he will be dealt with as the scriptures say he's gonna be dealt with.
And see, if you look at China and you look at Russia, what they did, they bided their time, they bit their tongue. Russia was building up its military prowess back again. China was building up its military prowess, but they did it in a way as not to alarm the empire. And China said, you know what? I'm not going to follow the same suit of these other nations. Some built up the military, but they didn't have the economics. So America sanctioned them and broke their military. Look at Saddam Hussein. Before they went into Iraq, they sanctioned them for a decade to break the military. But so China did this.
Same thing with Gaddafi.
Yeah.
Same thing with Gaddafi.
That's right. That's right.
They made him get rid of his weapons through that son. Dad, we need to get rid of all of them. As soon as you get rid of all of the weapons, the empire say you ain't got no more weapons. Start the bombing.
Yeah, and they don't want to talk then. There's no negotiations then. And listen, so China said, I'm gonna follow this path. As not to alarm the empire, I won't publish the true numbers of my military figures of what I'm building and what I'm doing, but I'll build up my economy and make it beneficial for both sides, as not to alarm the empire. But at the same time, they knew that the empire would renege on economic agreements. So China also built up its strategic depth by building up copper, zinc, and all of these metals and minerals, and also gold and silver and these commodities, and made a deal with Russia through the BRICS nations that if something were to happen, we would bag you, you would bag us economically and politically. We would do the same to you, but we would need to have commodities and certain commodities in our, so that's why you see them working together. And now the empire is at a position where she cannot roll back the strength of these two nations, but they had to use little fires around the world to distract the empire so that they could build up their prowess economically and politically. And America thought that Russian economy was what they said was smaller than that of Italy. We put these sanctions on them. Yeah, we put the sanctions on them, we'll break them. And then they found out
it's a gas station.
Yeah, and now they found out that Russia's economy is much more significant than any of the Western economies because it is self-sufficient in food production. It is self-sufficient in minerals. It is self-sufficient in precious metals. It is self-sufficient in a host of other areas. So the sanctions lost their effects, and the people who imposed the sanctions are now starting to feel the effects because at the same time, China is now moving to assert itself independently on the global stage, and this is now causing all kind of ripples and blowback and waves that are drowning the empire in the Western world in its political and economic system.
Remember, it's her arrogance and her hubris. She couldn't see the other countries because she was so full of herself.
That's right.
I'm the greatest thing that walked around the planet Earth. Me, 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 me. And other people studly building. The other people around the world didn't get themselves involved in Iraq, Afghanistan, Libya, Iraq, Somalia. They wasn't using all of the power and military prowess. They just steadily building. While you run around and throwing all of this stuff away to the point where your dollar is a joke.
Right.
You see, when he gives other people money, he never gives you anything of value. He just gives you military stuff that he done had 20 years ago or 50 years ago. Go and clean out all of his stockpiles of worthless junk and hand it to you and say, yeah, I'm giving you $25 billion. Some of the rifles don't even work. He done lost everything. He can't manufacture nothing.
And remember,
absolutely nothing.
Do you remember an article I did on the Patreon and where I used the statistics of the Western governments and the Asian forums where they said China produces more military equipment and warships in a 3-month span than the United States and all of NATO does in a year and a half. In a 3-month span. And that's not at full capacity.
China had 7 destroyers being built at once.
And 3 submarines.
America built one destroyer, and when it go out, they had to tow it back in the port about a month later because the engines and stuff not working.
Yeah. So we're watching again. She
is going down.
That's right. Listen, everyone. If I get back in time later on this evening, Brother Rashid and I may do an evening show around 7 or 8 Central Time. If I don't, we will be trying to get on the air in the morning to do a live stream. So we want y'all to catch us at that time. Rashid, in closing, you can't close no better than that. You can't close no better than that. Listen, for everyone.
What did it say? The fall of America.
And that's what we're living in.
This was done, 50, 60 years ago?
Yeah.
It talks about, like Brother Rashid said, how America would lose her grip on the nations of the world, her economic power, how her military would be dragged into different fires all around the world, wars and rumors of war. This is a blueprint of what we have today.
Yeah.
And if you want to see it, and if you want, pick it up and read it. Pick it up, go and get it and read it, and then come back and tell us, were we telling you the truth or not?
So I can't say anything other than, hey man, that's the best thing to go out on. So we're going to go out the same way we came in. We love y'all. We want you to stay strong, get involved in finding out about the truth and securing your family's future and securing y'all livelihoods in the day of the downfall of Babylon and the collapse of the Western or the old world order. Please, you got to invest just like you want a return profit with finances, and you make that investment there and you watch the markets. You got to make that investment within yourself and your people and your family, and watch the happenings in the global landscape so that you can have a spiritual return that will be such that it secures you and your family going into the hereafter, because this thing is collapsing and it's collapsing at breakneck speed.
Because what happens around the world affects you and your family. Right. Some of us, if it is not on my block or next door, I don't even want to hear about it. If they take down the empire, then your block and your family are up a creek. If you do, they had toilet tissue, right? Nobody had any toilet tissue.
Right.
And I have a crazy son of mine talk about, we don't need no toilet tissue, we got leaves. I told him, wait a minute, we told him, you better hope that that's not poison oak, them leaves you grab. Then we're going to have another problem.
We're going to leave it right there, everybody. Listen, remember what I said, we're going to try to come back here between 7 and 8 Central Time tonight. If I'm able to get back home in time. I got a few things I have to take care of family-wise, and I have a little martial arts I have to handle. If we get out on time, we'll try to do it. If not, we're going to definitely try to get back on the air in the morning, unless StreamYard or YouTube blocks us. Now, on that note, we go out the same way we came in, with love and peace. I want to say to everybody, stay strong, but above all things, stay true and seek righteousness from cradle to the grave. Hey, mama, I love you. Peace, everybody.